So, next book I am talking about is Supermarket Sabbats by Michael Fure. So, I have a digital copy of it, so it's going to be slightly different. Obviously from a physical copy of it, but yes, that's the book I am talking about right now. So it goes off into sections, winter to autumn. Basically, it starts off at like Yuletide kind of thing, but basically why I'm thinking he starts off a winter, because that's in the northern hemisphere, that's what the season is at January 1st. So, and what a lot of people that he's likely writing, like that's his mindset, he's in the northern hemisphere, so winter is at the beginning of the year and then it goes to autumn. So there is that start of Yuletide. Yeah, he could have started off at autumn with Samhain, but there are people, it is like the start and end of the year for a few people, but it makes a little more sense to start out at the winter time, because that's when, again, when January 1st comes around. So there is that. So the seasons are split into sections, and then within those sections are chapters of the Sabbats, or like that time of year with the Sabbats into the chapters of that section. There is more of an introduction, like a basics of background. Here's how to make a general like incense or general potion or brew or whatever. So the information and recipes aren't separated, but in one chapter, it's like here's some information about Yule, and here's the like 1 or 2 different types of incense, a ritual, here's 2 or 3 recipes, here's a potpourri, here's a DIY craft or whatever, into that one chapter. So that's for each following chapter. So if you're a type of person that wants, here's a chapter of incense, here's a chapter of brews, here's the food recipe chapter, this isn't set up like that. So if you're a person that wants that separation, this book isn't going to be for you. You're going to go like, no, into while reading the book. So recipes for that holiday / time of year. And so yeah, within each chapter there's a witchy wisdom section, and at the end of each, so it's general, the witchy wisdom kind of thing is just relating to that, but not an actual like information recipe kind of section. It's just there. And at the end of each chapter there's a shopping list for the things needed in that chapter. For me, it would have made more sense to have that shopping list at the beginning. The shopping list doesn't give you, oh, you're going to need, like, doesn't combine all the ingredients. Oh, you're going to need, if you're going to make every single thing in this chapter, you're going to need this much, like, flour, or you're going to need this much rosemary or whatever. It just gives you, these are the things used in the chapter. For me, it would have been nice to have the list at the beginning of, here's, after the information and all that, here's what's going to be used, like the products used in the following, not oh, here's what I used. Like, it's almost like an afterthought. Oh, here's a shopping list of the stuff I used in these. Yeah, it's nice to have that grouping of all the things together of what was used. But for me, I'm like, kind of nice to know beforehand. Yeah, if you read the recipes, it tells you what's going to be used. But if, like, he put that shopping list in, and again, it was almost like an afterthought that he wanted to put that shopping list in, but he's like, oh, the end of the chapter seems fine. Which on its, but in, I'm gonna go back on myself, but like, at least he put it somewhere. So, but again, for me, it would have been nice to have, oh, here's the items I'm going to use in these following recipes. So, there is that. And yeah, so it's not exact measurements of the products because not all of the recipes will use every single thing or exact measurements because, yeah. So each chapter relates to one holiday / time of year relating to that Sabbat. Like the title says, the chapters do not include each Sabbat within each section of the season. In section 5, after going through the Sabbats, so after going through Yule to Mabon, he has different moon dates, like the cycle and like solar and lunar eclipse, and February 29th, he recognizes that date. That's within other, like, cookbook-related books that I have looked into, which isn't many, but a lot of them, like, would give dates or relative times, or like, oh, use this for a full moon or whatever. Not a lot say, hey, February 29th, once every 4 years, kind of, here's something to do on that day. So, there is a small afterword, not a huge conclusion, because for something like this, you don't need a huge conclusion. He could have just, once he stopped with, like, February 29th, he could have just stopped and went into his correspondences and index section, but he did a small afterword. So for something like this, you don't need a huge ass conclusion. Just a little snippet there of here's my book kind of thing. There's 2 tables, not really appendixes, just 2 tables of correspondences. So there's color and ingredients. So what certain colors and ingredients, what they would mean when you bring them in. The book itself is like a cookbook and spell book into one, instead of having one book of recipes and then one book of things to make, like the incenses, brews, potions, rituals. He kind of combined them. There's not a whole lot of, like, there's not a great variety of recipes, but there is a nice small selection that you could go off of. So it's a little mix of recipes. The rituals in this book are solitary rituals, which is kind of nice because a lot of books that I have seen are group oriented, and you're like, okay, how am I, if you want to do that ritual, oh, how am I going to make this a solitary one? There are a few books that make that adjustment of it being solitary, but this one is, the rituals are solitary. They're, like, to me, you could depending on how you work it, you could make it for a small group, maybe 2, 3, 4, maybe other people, but not a huge group. So it's more of a solitary, maybe adding 1 or 2 more people. But there is that solitary ritual. It's a nice little addition if you don't want to get like 5, 6 different books of, here's my cookbook, here's my incense related book, here's my brew potion kind of related book. This is into one. It's not a whole lot of recipes. I'm sure you could adjust some of the things if you know how to do it right. You could adjust it. So they are pretty good. So if you don't like having multiple books, this is a good like starter. If you don't want to go full force on having like 4 or 5 incense books or 4 or 5 like cookbooks, it's just really small, really general kind of thing. So it's a mix of stuff, and it's not totally overwhelming. So it's a nice little book. This is a second book that he has related to the supermarket. So Supermarket Magic is his other one. He has like 2 spell casting books as well. There you go. Spell casting books, according to that also by section. So it's just bringing a little magic of, you're going to the supermarket. Here's what can be related to the Sabbats. So it's okay. It's really like, it's not totally in depth, which is nice for some people. Like, I don't want a huge explanation of these how to and like the history of all this. I'm like, get to the point, which a good majority of this has. So it's a nice little read if you can get it from your library or share it with people. So, but if something like food or making stuff yourself, like if you are more of that like kitchen hedge witch kind of thing, this could be also a nice starting point, because there are a few good starting point books. And yeah, happy readings.